The sterile white corridors of Sanctuary, Faye hummed with the quiet efficiency of 1,000 alien medical drones. The orbital station's curved walls glowed with soft golden light, their surfaces polished to a mirror sheen that reflected the passing medical staff of a dozen different species. Dr. Lisa Hayes's boots clicked against the floor as she walked, the sound distinctly human amidst the skittering of chitinous limbs and the whisper of floating medics. Her reflection in the walls showed a woman out of place. No exoskeleton, no bioluminescent markings, just pale human skin and a standard issue blue medical jumpsuit. She adjusted the datapad under her arm as she approached the towering double doors of the High Mediator's chamber. The Zephyrian guards flanking the entrance didn't move as she approached, their forearms crossed over their armored chests, their faceted eyes staring straight ahead. Lisa cleared her throat. Dr. Lisa Hayes. Earth Medical Corps. I have an appointment with High Mediator Vexis. One of the guards finally turned its head, the light catching on its iridescent carapace. You are early, it buzzed. The High Mediator does not appreciate early arrivals. Lisa forced a smile. Human punctuality, we tend to show up before we're expected. The guard made a sound like grinding stones before tapping a sequence into the panel beside the door. The massive doors slid open with a hiss, revealing the cavernous chamber beyond. The High Mediator's room was a study in alien opulence. Floating holograms of medical schematics rotated slowly in the air, while the domed ceiling displayed a real-time map of known plague outbreaks across the Federation. At the center of it all, perched on a raised dais, sat Vexis the Unbroken. The Zephyrian High Mediator was an imposing figure, his carapace a deep cobalt blue streaked with gold, his forearms resting on the arms of his chair, like a monarch holding court. Lisa approached, stopping at the designated marker on the floor, a circle of light that indicated where petitioners were to stand. High Mediator, she said, bowing slightly. Thank you for seeing me. Vexis's mandibles twitched. A sign Lisa had learned indicated mild irritation. Dr. Hayes, he said, his voice a deep, resonant buzz. Your petition for human inclusion in the Universal Health Service has been reviewed by the Council. He gestured with one upper arm, and a holographic document appeared between them. The decision was unanimous. Lisa's heart sank even before he continued. Your species' biology is too primitive, Vexis said, his faceted eyes reflecting the glowing denial notice hovering in the air. Your immune systems are underdeveloped compared to Federation standards. Allowing human patients into our facilities would risk contamination of our sterile environments. Lisa clenched her fists at her sides, her nails digging into her palms. With all due respect, High Mediator, humanity has been treating its own sick for thousands of years. We've developed. Your medicine is little more than superstition, Vexis interrupted. Crude chemical compounds and invasive physical procedures. The UHS employs molecular-level nanomedicine and genetic restructuring. Your people would not survive our treatments. A murmur ran through the gathered observers, other medics and officials who had come to witness the petition. Lisa recognized the sneering faces of the Vorak delegation, their spined tails twitching in amusement. One of them, a particularly large male with scarred plating, leaned over to his companion. Let them rot in their own filth, he hissed, just loud enough for Lisa to hear. Primitives. Lisa took a deep breath, forcing her voice to remain steady. High Mediator, there are over 12 billion humans in Federation space. We pay our taxes, we contribute to the economy, denying us access to basic. Vexis's wings vibrated briefly, a sign of agitation. There is nothing basic about UHS care. It is the pinnacle of galactic medical science. Your people are welcome to continue using your own methods. He waved a hand, and the holographic denial notice flashed red before dissolving. This session is concluded. The guards stepped forward, their presence making it clear Lisa was expected to leave. She stood her ground for a moment longer, meeting Vexis's gaze. You're making a mistake, she said quietly. Vexis's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter. The UHS does not make mistakes, Dr. Hayes. We are the healers of the galaxy. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have actual medical emergencies to attend to. Lisa turned on her heel and walked out, the whispers of the alien medics following her like a trail of smoke. She kept her head high until she reached the transit hub, where the sleek shuttles of the UHS flitted to and from the station's docking arms. There, leaning against a support pillar, was Dr. Marcus Chen. His dark eyes took in her expression, and he didn't need to ask. "That bad, huh?" he said, pushing off the pillar to fall into step beside her. Lisa exhaled sharply. "Wuss, they didn't even consider it, called our medicine superstition." Marcus snorted. "Says the species that still bleeds patients for fever." He handed her a steaming cup of coffee, real earth coffee, smuggled in through who knew what channels. So what now? Lisa took a sip, the bitter warmth grounding her. "Now," she said, "we wait." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Wait for what?" Lisa watched as a group of Zephyrian medics floated past, their wings humming, their voices full of condescension. She smiled. "For them to realize they need us more than we need them." The mining colony on Tarsis, Faye, had been thriving just a week ago. Now it was a graveyard wrapped in quarantine fields. The first reports had come in as minor irritations, itching carapaces, coughing fits among the Forian crystal, breathers. Then the bodies started melting. Dr. Bellis of the Universal Health Service adjusted his gleaming silver respirator as he stepped off the shuttle. The Zephyrian's 4 eyes narrowed at the scene before him. Krill workers writhed on makeshift cots, their chitinous exoskeletons bubbling like wax. Forians gasped as their crystalline lungs turned to slurry inside their chests. The air reeked of ammonia and something worse, something organic breaking down at the molecular level. "Seal the perimeter," Bellis ordered, his voice crisp through the comms. "No one leaves. Burn the dead immediately." A Krill foreman staggered toward him, half his face sloughing off in gelatinous strands. "Please help us." Bellis took a measured step back. "Your suffering will be documented for research. The UHS will find a cure." Across the colony, triage tents overflowed. Medics in sterile white suits moved like ghosts, scanning patients only to mark them for incineration. No treatments worked. No protocols slowed the plague. The USN Florence Nightingale dropped out of warp with a shudder. Dr. Lisa Hayes gripped the railing as the aging medical frigate stabilized. The ship's engines whined. They'd pushed them too hard getting here. "Marcus, get the field kits ready," Lisa said, already pulling on her biosuit. The fabric was patched in 3 places. Human medical supplies weren't exactly Federation approved. Dr. Marcus Chen tossed her a scanner. "Us just updated their bulletins. They're calling it the Eclipse Vector. Mortality rates at Fae for Krill, Fae for Forians." Lisa's jaw tightened. "And humans?" "0 cases." Marcus smirked. "Turns out being biologically primitive has its perks." The Nightingale's comm crackled. "Unidentified vessel, this is Sanctuary Fae Quarantine Control. You are not cleared for approach." Lisa thumbed the response. "This is Dr. Hayes of the United Earth Medical Corps. We're responding to the Tarsis. Fae outbreak." A pause. Then a new voice, sneering, familiar. "Your assistance is neither required nor permitted." "Bellis, the UHS has jurisdiction here." Lisa exchanged glances with Marcus. "Tell that to the dying," she muttered, cutting the channel. The Nightingale set down in a derelict landing pad on the colony's outskirts. No welcome party, no UHS escorts, just the distant glow of containment fields and the occasional scream cutting through the sulphurous air. Lisa stepped out first, her boots crunching on something that used to be a krill worker's limb. The smell hit her like a physical blow. "God," Marcus gagged. "It's like a slaughterhouse." They moved toward the nearest triage tent. UHS medics in pristine armor turned as they approached. One raised a scanner. "Human life signs detected. You are in violation of Save it, Lisa snapped. Where's your worst case? The medics hesitated. A Forian child convulsed nearby, her crystal ribs audibly cracking. Lisa didn't wait for permission. She knelt beside the girl, pulling a diagnostic wand from her kit. The readings made no sense. Marcus, look at this. It's not a virus. It's not bacterial. Marcus peered over her shoulder. Those markers. Lisa, this is nanotech, programmed decomposition. A shadow fell over them. Velis loomed, his silver robes untouched by the filth around them. Your presence here is an insult. These are advanced species, suffering an advanced pathogen. Your primitive tools cannot help them. Lisa didn't look up. You're wrong. This isn't a disease, it's a weapon, and it's ignoring us because we're not on its target list. Velis' upper eyes twitched. Preposterous. Nearby, a Krill elder let out a wet, gurgling shriek as his thorax split open. UHS medics rushed to incinerate him before the fluids could spread. Marcus stood abruptly. Lisa, our stem cell banks, if this thing's targeting non-human DNA. Lisa's head snapped up. We can use human base pairs as a template, disrupt the nanites' programming. Velis scoffed. Superstitious nonsense. The UHS will, let me guess, Lisa said, finally standing. Burn the bodies, document the suffering. She shoved past him. Move. We're setting up a field hospital. The UHS medics parted as Lisa and Marcus marched back toward the Nightingale. Behind them, the Forian girl whimpered as another crystal shattered in her chest. Velis called after them, voice dripping with disdain. You will fail, and when you do, the galaxy will see humanity for what it truly is. Weak, unfit. Lisa didn't turn around. Funny, I was just thinking the same thing about you. The Nightingale's cargo bay doors groaned open. Inside, human medics were already unpacking field generators, jury rigging sterilization fields from mining equipment. Lisa grabbed a bioreactor and started coding in haste. Marcus, prep the stem cells. We've got maybe 6 hours before this colony turns into soup. Outside, another containment field flared, as another 100 souls were marked for burning. Somewhere in the chaos, a Krill mother cradled her liquefying child and whispered a prayer, not to the UHS, but to the humans who'd come uninvited. The cargo bay of the USN Florence Nightingale hummed with desperate activity. Flickering emergency lights cast long shadows across the makeshift medical ward, where human medics in stained biosuits moved between rows of groaning aliens. The air stank of antiseptic and something worse, the acrid tang of melting chitin, the sweet rot stench of liquefying Forian crystal. Flesh. Lisa Hayes wiped sweat from her brow with the back of her glove. Her surgical mask clung to her face, damp with condensation across the bay. Marcus Chen hunched over a jury-rigged microscope. His dark eyes narrowed in concentration. Anything? Lisa called over the din of coughing Krill workers. Marcus didn't look up. Their cellular structure is disintegrating at a molecular level. It is like watching glass shatter in slow motion. He adjusted the focus. But here is the weird part. Our scans show zero cross-species contamination. The Krill samples are degrading differently than the Forian ones. Lisa moved to his side, peering at the display. Alien biology normally made her head spin. 12 different amino acids, triple, helix DNA, organs that seem to change function depending on lunar cycles. But this, it is not a disease, she murmured. Marcus nodded grimly. It is too precise, too targeted. He tapped the screen, pulling up a new scan. Look at the nanoscale activity. This isn't some random mutation, it is a weapon. A Krill medic staggered past them, his carapace cracking along the thorax. Greenish fluid seeped from the fissures. Lisa caught him before he collapsed, easing him onto a cot. The alien's faceted eyes rolled toward her, mandibles quivering. Please, he rasped in heavily accented standard. My brood siblings on level 4. We'll get to them, Lisa promised, though the lie burned her tongue. They had 12 medics for 300 dying patients. The UHS had cordoned off the entire colony, leaving only the humans to witness the carnage. Marcus was already at the comms station, his fingers flying over the keyboard. "I'm Cross, referencing the pathogen's behavior with known bioweapon signatures. If we can identify the delivery mechanism. Lisa snapped. "Marcus, people are dying now, and we'll save more if we understand what we're fighting." He spun the display toward her. "Look at this, the nanites have specific protein markers. They're ignoring human tissue completely." Lisa froze. That couldn't be right. She grabbed a fresh sample kit and marched to the nearest krill patient, a young worker whose left forelimb had already dissolved into sludge. The scanner beeped as she passed it over the oozing wound. Marcus was right. The microscopic machines ravaging the alien's body slowed as they neared traces of her own skin cells left on the scanner. Almost hesitating. "Primitive," Lisa whispered, remembering Vexus's sneering dismissal. "They designed this thing to attack advanced biology. We're too backward to register as targets." Marcus barked a laugh that held no humor. "So our inferiority is our superpower." He pushed off from the console. "If the nanites are coded to avoid human DNA, we might be able to use our stem cells as a template. Build a biological firewall." Lisa's mind raced. It was insane. Human medicine had barely begun understanding alien physiology, let alone how to integrate it with their own. But the krill child in Cot 12 didn't have time for perfect solutions. "Set up the bioreactor," she ordered. "We'll need to harvest from every medic here. The more genetic diversity, the better." A Vorak nurse, one of the few non-humans who'd stayed to help, hissed in alarm. "You would inject your filthy cells into Federation citizens." Lisa didn't bother looking up as she prepped a syringe. "You're welcome to explain to that kid's parents why purity mattered more than his life." The Vorak recoiled as Lisa rolled up her sleeve and jabbed the needle into her own arm. Dark red blood filled the vial. Marcus followed suit, then gestured for the other human medics to join them. One by one, they lined up, miners, engineers, even the ship's cook, rolling up sleeves and offering veins. The bioreactor hummed as it processed the donations, synthesizing a crude cocktail of human stem cells and adaptive proteins. Lisa watched the machine's progress, bar crawl forward. Somewhere on level 4, krill children were screaming as their bodies fell apart. Somewhere in the UHS command center, Vexus was probably still arguing protocols. The machine beeped. A single vial of amber liquid gleamed in the output tray. "That is it?" a young medic asked, voice cracking. "That is all we get." Marcus lifted the vial to the light. "Enough for one test dose." He met Lisa's eyes. "Your call, Doc." Lisa took the vial. The solution inside shimmered oddly. Human cells forced into a role evolution never intended. It might do nothing. It might kill the patient faster. A weak cough drew her attention. The krill child from earlier, maybe 8 years old by his species standards, watched her with huge pain, glazed eyes. His chitin had begun splitting along the abdomen, revealing pulsing organs beneath. Lisa knelt beside him. "This might hurt," she warned the parents, who clutched each other's claws. The mother made a soft clicking noise. More than watching him die. The injection gun hissed against the child's thorax for 3 heartbeats. Nothing happened. Then the monitors erupted in alarm. "Seizing," Marcus yelled, reaching for stabilizers. The krill child arched off the bed, limbs spasming. His carapace cracked further, greenish hemolymph spraying the sheets. The parents wailed. Then, as suddenly as it began, the convulsions stopped. Lisa held her breath as the scanners recalibrated. The nanite activity graphs, which had been a solid red mass of destruction, now showed patches of blue. The invaders were retreating. Marcus exhaled sharply. They're recognizing the human markers as hostile. The nanites are shutting down. The krill child's breathing evened out. His remaining chitin, though fractured, stopped oozing. One clawed hand reached weakly toward Lisa. She took it gently, feeling the alien's pulse steady beneath her fingers. Around them, the other patients began stirring, hope dawning in their pain, clouded eyes. Marcus was already at the bioreactor, feeding it more blood samples. We'll need to refine the formula. The concentration was too high, nearly stopped his heart. Lisa nodded, her own heart pounding. They'd done the impossible. Now came the hard part, making it work for an entire galaxy. The Krill child's labored breathing echoed through the makeshift medical bay, each wheeze sounding like sandpaper on rusted metal. Its chitinous plates had begun to crack, oozing thick black fluid that sizzled where it touched the floor. The parents, towering insectoids with iridescent wings, clutched each other's forelimbs, their compound eyes reflecting the dim emergency lighting. Lisa Hayes adjusted her gloves, the thin material straining against her fingers as she prepared the syringe. The human-derived serum glowed faintly blue in the low light, a stark contrast to the grim surroundings of the repurposed cargo bay. Marcus Chen stood beside her, his face set in a grim line as he monitored the child's vitals on a jury-rigged display. "You sure about this?" Marcus muttered, his voice low. "We've only tested it on cultures, not a living patient." Lisa didn't look up. "We're out of time." The Krill mother let out a chittering wail as her child convulsed, its limbs twitching uncontrollably. One of the UHS medics, a Zephyrian in pristine white robes, hovered near the doorway, his forearms crossed in disapproval. "This is barbaric," Dr. Velis sneered. "Injecting untested compounds into a patient. You might as well be poisoners." Lisa ignored him. She pressed the syringe against the child's thorax, where the chitin had split the widest. The needle hissed as it punctured the exoskeleton for a heartbeat. Nothing happened. Then the child's body arched off the table. The Krill parents shrieked, their wings flaring in alarm. Marcus lunged forward, bracing the child's spasming form. The monitors screamed with alarms, jagged red lines spiking across the screens. Velis's smug expression faltered. And then, silence. The child's breathing evened out. The black ooze ceased its flow, clotting into a thick, scab-like crust. One by one, the monitors stabilized, the frantic beeps slowing into a steady rhythm. The cracked chitin began to knit itself back together, the edges sealing with a soft, organic click. The Krill mother reached out with trembling forelimbs, her claws brushing her child's face. The little one's antennae twitched, then slowly uncurled. Its eyes, hundreds of tiny reflective facets, flickered open. A choked sound escaped the mother. Not a wail, not a scream, a sob. The UHS medic stood frozen. Velis's mouth hung open, his earlier arrogance replaced by stunned disbelief. One of the Krill parents turned to Lisa, their voice trembling. You saved her." Marcus let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. It worked. Lisa wiped her forehead with the back of her hand, smearing sweat and grime. "For now, we'll need to monitor her, make sure the serum holds." Velis took a hesitant step forward, his voice uncharacteristically quiet. "How?" Lisa met his gaze. "The plague targets specific genetic markers, non-human ones. Our biology was too primitive to trigger it." She held up the empty syringe. "So we used ourselves as the blueprint." The Krill father reached out, his massive claws dwarfing Lisa's hand as he clasped it gently. "You risked your own people to save ours." Marcus smirked, though exhaustion lined his face. "Yeah, well, we're weird like that." Outside the makeshift med bay, whispers spread. Alien medics who had scoffed at the humans now peered through the doorway, their expressions a mix of awe and shame. A Forian nurse, her crystalline skin dull with fatigue, approached hesitantly. There are more patients, hundreds. The plague is spreading through the lower decks." Lisa didn't hesitate. "Then we get to work." Velis stared at her. "You would treat them all, even after we denied your species?" Lisa rolled up her sleeves, already moving toward the next patient. "We don't need your permission to save lives." The words hung in the air, heavy with implication. For the first time since the outbreak began, something flickered in the eyes of the UHS medics. The council chamber of sanctuary, Faye hummed with tension, the curved walls displaying holographic plague maps that pulsed red across 3-star systems. Dr. Lisa Hayes stood at the edge of the central platform, her boots leaving faint smudges on the pristine white floor. The air smelled of antiseptic and alien pheromones, a cloying mix that made her nose itch. Vexis the Unbroken loomed over the assembly, his four arms crossed in disapproval. The Zephyrian High Mediator's chitinous plates gleamed under the chamber lights, his compound eyes reflecting the emergency alerts flickering across the displays. "This is not a debate," he intoned, his voice vibrating through the translation implants. "Human medical practices are not recognized by the Universal Health Service. Their methods are untested, uncertified." A murmur rippled through the gathered delegates. The Krill ambassador clicked his mandibles rapidly, his thorax still showing faint cracks from his recent recovery. "They saved my daughter," he protested. "The human serum worked when your nano-purifiers failed." Velis, the Zephyrian elite who dismissed Lisa days earlier, floated forward on his anti-grav disc. His medical robes billowed dramatically. "A single case proves nothing. The humans got lucky. Their primitive biology happened to resist this particular plague. That doesn't make them physicians." Lisa felt Marcus Chen tense beside her, his knuckles whitened around the datapad containing their research. She placed a warning hand on his arm before he could speak. The Forian delegation shimmered near the ceiling, their crystalline bodies refracting the emergency lights. Ambassador Crix's voice chimed like breaking glass. "The UHS exists to serve all Federation species. If the humans have a solution, they have a stopgap." Velis interrupted. "A crude inhibitor derived from their own flawed cellular structure. Would you inject your children with human genetic material, risk cross-species contamination?" A Vorak medic hissed from the shadows, his scaled tail lashing. "Let the infected die with dignity. Better than becoming test subjects for these mammals." Lisa's composure cracked. Dignity. She stepped forward, ignoring the warning lights that flashed as she breached the speaker's boundary. "There is nothing dignified about watching your child dissolve into a puddle of biomatter. We've synthesized a stable." The chamber doors hissed open. All eyes turned as a Forian aide staggered in, his crystal lattice darkening at the edges. "Ambassador," he chimed weakly. Then his thoracic cavity cracked with an awful crystalline shatter. Crix screamed, a sound like 1,000 wind chimes in a hurricane, as his aide collapsed. The Forian's body hit the floor in a cascade of breaking prismatic shards, his internal fluids blackening as the plague consumed him from within. Chaos erupted. Medics rushed forward with containment fields, while delegates scrambled back from the spreading pool of dark liquid. Vexis bellowed orders, his antennae quivering with alarm. Lisa and Marcus moved as one. They reached the dying Forian before the UHS teams, their human reflexes outpacing the startled aliens. Marcus yanked a hypo from his belt. "Hold him steady." "You can't," Velis shouted. The risk of... Lisa didn't hesitate. She plunged the needle into the largest remaining crystal segment, injecting their human, derived inhibitor directly into the Forian's core neural cluster. The chamber fell silent for 3 heartbeats. Nothing happened. Then the blackening fluid stopped spreading. The cracks in the Forian's body ceased propagating. A faint blue glow pulsed through his remaining latticework. Crix hovered over them, his facets vibrating. "Is he stabilized?" Marcus grunted, checking his scanner. "Not cured, but the necrosis has stopped." He glared up at Vexis. "Unlike your protocols." The Zephyrian High Mediator's mandibles worked soundlessly. Around them, the holographic plague maps continued flashing, the red zones creeping outward. A young Krill medic, one Lisa had treated on Tarsis. Faye stepped forward. Her antennae trembled as she addressed the assembly. "The humans have saved 17 of my patients. While UHS debated, they acted." She turned to Vexis. "How many more must die before you admit they're right?" Velis floated down, his disc humming. He examined the scanner readings with growing disbelief. "This shouldn't be possible. Their stem cell matrix is decades behind our..." "But it works," Crix interrupted. The Forian ambassador's facets blazed with reflected light as he turned to the assembly. I move for immediate emergency authorization of human medical intervention. The Vorak delegate hissed. This is seconded. The Krill ambassador clicked loudly around the chamber. Other voices rose in agreement. Lisa stood, wiping blackened crystal dust from her hands. She met Vexus's gaze evenly. We have 300 doses on our ship, and the formula to make more. She glanced at the still, twitching Forian. But we'll need full access to your bioreactors. Vexus's antennae drooped. For the first time, the unbroken looked uncertain. The emergency alerts painted his carapace crimson. Finally, he straightened. The UHS will consider a temporary partnership. His voice carried the weight of a crumbling dogma. Under strict supervision. Marcus snorted. Supervise all you want. He helped Lisa to her feet. Just stay out of our way while we save your people. As they strode from the chamber, Lisa heard the first real hope in the delegates' voices. The Vorak still muttered about contamination. Velis argued over protocols. But the plague maps kept spreading, and for the first time since the outbreak began, someone knew how to stop it. The alarms blared across Sanctuary. Faye as the USN Nightingale forced its docking clamps to engage. Metal groaned against metal, the human ship's battered hull scraping against the pristine gold plating of the orbital hospital. Warning lights flashed crimson across the docking bay as UHS security teams scrambled to respond. Unauthorized vessel, you are in violation of the comms cut off as Dr. Marcus Chen overrode the channel. Save the speeches. We've got 500 liters of inhibitor serum and 20 human medics ready to deploy. You can arrest us after we stop your people from dying. Lisa Hayes was already moving before the docking ramp fully lowered, her boots hitting the polished floor at a run. Behind her, human medics poured out of the Nightingale like a flood, pushing anti-grav gurneys loaded with medical supplies. The UHS staff froze in place, their many eyes wide with shock. A Zephyrian nurse blocked Lisa's path, his forearms spread wide. You can't just, Lisa shoved past him. Watch me. The quarantine wards were worse than she'd imagined. Rows upon rows of alien patients writhed in agony, their bodies breaking down under the nanoplague's assault. Krill workers curled into fetal positions as their chitin cracked like eggshells. Forians gasped for air, their crystalline lungs fracturing with every breath. The air stank of antiseptic and despair. Marcus was already at the first Krill's bedside, slapping a bioscanner onto its thorax. Lisa, we need to triage. The inhibitor works, but we don't have enough for everyone. She didn't hesitate. Kids first, then medical staff, then everyone else. A Vorak medic snarled from across the ward, his spined tail lashing. You dare prioritize. These are Federation citizens. Lisa whirled on him, her voice cutting through the chaos. And I'm the one holding the cure, so either help us or get the hell out of our way. The first injection went into a tiny Krill child, its carapace already half melted. Lisa's hands were steady as she pressed the hyperspray to its thorax. For 3 heartbeats, nothing happened. Then the monitors screamed to life as the child's vitals stabilized. Its breathing evened out. The cracks in its chitin began sealing over. A Forian mother nearby let out a sound like shattering glass, their version of a sob. You saved her. Marcus was already moving to the next bed. We're not done yet. Word spread faster than the plague. By the time Lisa reached the 3rd ward, UHS medics were trailing behind her like lost pups, their disbelief giving way to desperate hope. A Zephyrian surgeon, one who'd sneered at her during the rejection hearings, now stood frozen as Lisa shoved a loaded hypospray into his hands. Stop gawking and start injecting. 1 dose per patient, thoracic port for insectoids, secondary lung node for Forians. The Zephyrian's mandibles trembled. But our protocols are getting people killed. Your call. He took the hyperspray. By the 5th hour, the tide had turned. Human and alien medics worked side by side, moving down the rows of beds in exhausted silence. The Nightingale's crew had set up makeshift production lines in the station's empty labs, synthesizing more inhibitor from Lisa's stem cell samples. Every time they ran low, another crate of vials would arrive, carried by soot-stained human engineers who looked like they hadn't slept in days. A young Zephyrian nurse approached Lisa as she collapsed onto a supply crate, her hands shaking from adrenaline crash. The alien's bioluminescent stripes pulsed with an emotion Lisa couldn't place. "Why?" the nurse asked softly. "After what we did to your people, why are you doing this?" Lisa wiped sweat from her brow, leaving a streak of krill ichor across her forehead. "Because it is what doctors do." Somewhere in the ward, a Phorian began singing, a deep, resonant sound that vibrated through the floor. One by one, other patients joined in. It wasn't a song of healing. It was a war chant, a defiance. Marcus slumped down beside her, his scrub stained with half a dozen alien bodily fluids. "They're calling us something." My translator's fuzzy, but I think it translates to the unbroken healers. Lisa let out a hoarse laugh. "Better than Sofkins." The station's comm system crackled to life. "All medical personnel report to the Grand Hall immediately. Priority override from High Mediator Vexis." Marcus groaned. "Oh, now he wants to talk." Lisa stood, her knees protesting. "Let's go see what the galaxy's most stubborn bureaucrat has to say." The walk to the Grand Hall felt like a victory march. UHS staff stepped aside as they passed, some bowing their heads, others reaching out to brush their appendages against the human sleeves in quiet gratitude. The Vorak delegation stood clustered near the doors, their usual sneers replaced by something uncomfortably close to awe. Vexis the Unbroken waited at the center of the hall, his golden robes looking dull under the emergency lighting. For the first time since Lisa had met him, the Zephyrian looked old. "You have violated every protocol," he began, his voice echoing through the silent chamber. Lisa crossed her arms. "And saved 12,000 lives. Are we done here?" Vexis's antennae drooped. "No, we are just beginning." He pressed a control on his wristband and the UHS emblem above them shimmered, then changed. The human flag now stood beside it, equal in size, equal in prominence. "The Universal Health Service," Vexis said, "as a new member species." The hall erupted. Phorians clattered their crystal limbs in applause. Krill workers clicked their mandibles in approval. Even the Vorak gave grudging nods. Marcus leaned close to Lisa's ear. "Think they'll still call us primitive?" She watched as the first human doctors received their UHS insignias from trembling alien hands. "Not twice, they won't." The Grand Hall of Sanctuary, Faye had never been so silent. The golden arches that once symbolized the pinnacle of galactic medicine now seemed to tremble under the weight of shame. Vexis the Unbroken stood before the assembled representatives, his four arms clasped behind his back, his usually vibrant carapace dull with exhaustion. The holographic plague maps that had once burned red with outbreaks now glowed a steady blue across every system. Lisa Hayes stood at the center of the chamber, still wearing her stained medical coat. Beside her, Marcus Chen leaned against a console, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. The human delegation, doctors, nurses, engineers from the USN Nightingale, stood in a loose formation behind them. They were outnumbered 50-1 by the assembled alien species. Yet they carried themselves like conquerors. "By the authority of the Universal Health Service Council," Vexis began, his voice uncharacteristically quiet, "we hereby extend full membership to the human species." A murmur rippled through the chamber. The Vorak delegation hissed, their spined crests flaring, but even they didn't dare object. Not after what they'd seen. Lisa didn't move. "That's it?" she asked. Vexis hesitated. "What more would you have us say?" Marcus snorted. "How about sorry?" A Phorian diplomat, her crystalline skin still faintly scarred from the plague, stepped forward. "We owe you more than apologies," she said, her voice chiming like struck glass. "We owe you our lives, our children's lives." She bowed deeply, an honor never before given to a human. One by one, the other delegates followed. The Krill clicked their mandibles in respect. The telepathic Ceruleans pulsed their bioluminescence in patterns of gratitude. Even the Vorak, ever proud, dipped their heads. Vexis watched them, his antennae twitching. "You must understand," he said. "We truly believed your methods were inferior. Your biology wasn't advanced enough to get sick from the plague." Lisa finished. "Yeah, we heard." She walked forward until she stood directly before Vexis. "But here's the thing. Medicine isn't about whose DNA is prettier. It's not about protocols or politics. It's about saving lives. And if you just looked past your own arrogance for 5 seconds, you'd have seen that." The chamber held its breath. Then Vexis did something no Zephyrian had ever done in recorded history. He knelt. His carapace scraped against the floor as he lowered himself, all 4 arms extended in surrender. "You are right," he said. "We were blind. Your primitive compassion saved billions." Lisa exhaled. Some of the tension left her shoulders. "Get up," she muttered. "You look ridiculous." Marcus smirked. "Speak for yourself. I'm enjoying this." A ripple of laughter spread through the human delegation. Even a few of the aliens joined in, their various forms of amusement filling the hall with clicks, hums, and chimes. Vexis rose, his pride clearly wounded, but his resolve intact. "The UHS will be reformed," he announced. "Human medical practices will be integrated into our standard protocols. Your doctors will have full access to our facilities, our research." "About damn time," Marcus muttered. Lisa elbowed him. "We accept," she said formally. Then she grinned. "But next time, don't wait for an apocalypse to ask for help." The ceremony that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The human flag, blue and white, with the serpent, and staff emblem of Earth's medical corps, was raised beside the Federation standard. The USN Nightingale, once dismissed as a rust bucket, was given honorary docking rights at every UHS station. And for the first time in history, human doctors walked the halls of Sanctuary, not as outsiders, but as equals. As Lisa stood on the observation deck, watching the Nightingale prepare for departure, Vexis joined her. "Where will you go now?" he asked. "Wherever we're needed," she said simply. The comm panel beeped. Marcus' voice crackled through. "Hayes, stop sightseeing. We've got a distress call from the Kelthar mining belt, some kind of fungal outbreak." Lisa rolled her eyes. "Duty calls." Vexis hesitated. "You could stay, lead the new human division of the UHS." She shook her head. "Nah, we work better in the field." She patted his shoulder, a human gesture that made him flinch. "Don't worry, you'll figure it out." As she walked away, Vexis called after her, "Dr. Hayes." She turned. "Thank you," he said. Lisa smiled. "Just doing my job." The Nightingale's engines flared to life, its battered hull gleaming in the station's lights. As it pulled away, 1,000 alien ships, Krill, Forian, even a Vorak battleship, flashed their running lights in salute. And for the first time in galactic history, the Universal Health Service finally lived up to its name.